So why am I bringing up tornadoes this morning? Because we're talking about forgiveness and unforgiveness, and sometimes unforgiveness and hurts and wounds can leave a path like a tornado. And if you've been wounded, you know that they're not all classified the same. There are some things that are, they're kind of minor is what we're going to call them today, and some of the tornadoes that we see are pretty minor. So there's like the F0, and the F0 is, it's light damage, 40 miles an hour to like 72 miles per hour. And with that, you'll see chimney damage, tree branches broken. An F1 is 73 miles an hour to 112 miles per hour. And that's where mobile homes get pushed off their foundation, they get flipped over. An F2 is 113 to 157 miles per hour. Mobile homes are demolished. Trees are actually uprooted with that. We're not going to go any further than the F3 today, but that gives you an idea. But offenses are like tornadoes, leaving damage in their wake. That's what you need to take away from that, okay? The higher the category, the more time and energy is needed to clean these up. The same thing with an offense, with the wound, with the hurt. The harder it is on you, the longer it may take to get through that. A couple weeks ago, I gave you this quote from Dr. Henry Cloud. To forgive someone means to let them off the hook, or to cancel a debt he owes you. When you refuse to forgive someone, you still want something from that person, and even if it's revenge you want, it keeps you tied to them forever. Last week, Pastor Paul talked about Colossians, and he was in chapter 3, and at one point he put on a shirt, and that shirt was to represent Pastor Vern's humility, but we're also looking in that chapter about how we put on Christ. The beginning of chapter 3 says, since or if. And those words are pointing to, if you choose this relationship with Jesus Christ, then you need to act like this. So it's an if, then this relationship. And he talked about that. If we set our minds above, then we need to think on the things of heaven, not on things of earth. Verse 3 says, for you died to this life, and your real life is hidden with Christ. If we are thinking on things above, we have to include forgiveness. And that's why we talk about this. We bring it up every so often because it's something that we can get stuck just kind of brushing apart. I've realized over the last, over my life that Christians are better at forgetting than forgiving. We are. We forget about it, so we think we've forgiven it. We really haven't dealt with it. I know people who are still mad at me from things way years ago. When they start to look at me, they'll walk away. They haven't forgiven me. There's still something there. They may have forgotten until they see this smiley face, and they're like, oh, I don't want to deal with that, whatever. But they forgot, they didn't forgive. Colossians 3:12 and 13 reads like this, and this is the context, this is the foundation of everything we talk about today. Since God chose you to be the holy people he loves, you must clothe yourselves with tender-hearted mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Make allowance for each other's faults. Make allowance for each other's faults. And forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. That's Colossians chapter 3. We need to make room for forgiveness in our lives. Often at home, you'll find us sitting on the couch, and we have this black lab. Her name is Kit. If you haven't met her, she's a pain. Get that out of the way. And if doesn't matter how many people are on the couch, she thinks that there is room for her. And she does the circling thing, like looking, and you wonder what's going on in their head because they're not that smart. They're really not. They're not like calculating angles, but you would think they're calculating angles because out of nowhere, she kind of paws one, like she's a slow motion dog. One paw, another paw, and then a weird roll, and then a dive, and it's typically not by me, more by Sarah, and then she'll sit there and look at me, and then it's just like this. It's so annoying until she's like right here. We have pictures of her right here in front of me. But you see what she was doing? She was making room on that couch for her. We don't often make room for forgiveness in our lives like that, but we have to. When we look at forgiveness, I think we need to understand that there's different ways to look at it. There's different categories because not everything is the same. I'm going to talk about a couple offenses that happened to me recently. One of them was from one of our elders in the church, okay? It really is not an offense, but it's a great example of how I could have been offended. So when we look at the categories, we're going to spend some time on these. The first one, the top one, is minor. So those are minor, just minor little things. They're the little things that may ruffle your feathers. I'd be like, yeah, why did he say that? Or why did she do that to me? They step on our toes. Think of it as the slight. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, what was that? A little thing, gets me. I see fingers being pointed. I don't know if I should look at that or what do? I bring that up? Right now? No, over here. It's not your section. You guys are Christians. I'm kidding. See, that could be a minor offense right there. Whoever I'm speaking to, don't take offense to that. But really, these minors are like, you can say to someone, you really said that? Really? You said that? These are things that may be quick. They're not deep wounds, but they start to fester, and they add up over time. These are things that I think are very prevalent now in social media. And if you look at Facebook, some of the comments, these are those little minor things. There's so many of them, though, I think it pushes us to the end. Newsflash, Charles Barkley got in trouble again for saying one of these minor things the other day. I won't bring up what it is, but old Charles does these all the time. These push us into this, what I call the poor me mode. Poor me mode. On a good day, these things don't bother me. On a bad day, why would they ever say that to me? On a good day, they don't bother me at all. So I'm going to give you two examples. The first one was a few years ago. I was at an event, and I think I may have been speaking to some extent. It wasn't here, so don't look at who it was who did this to me. And someone introduced me to someone else, and there was a professional relationship I had with them and basically destroyed me professionally as a joke. It wasn't really that funny to me. Right, Sarah? It may have been meant in jest, but I took it pretty hard. And I didn't take it as hard like I went home and cried, so I don't think I took it like that. But I took it where, wow, that was ignorant. And it wasn't the best thing that was ever said. To this gentleman's credit, he called me and apologized that day, which is awesome, that night. I didn't answer it because I knew I was not in the Christian mode to take that call. Never really talked about it after that. He apologized, asked for forgiveness, whatever. About a year later, he brings it up again. He's like, hey, I said something really stupid. We never really talked about that. I'm like, well, you called? He's like, yeah, but I don't know. I still feel bad about it. I'm like, no, it was me. I did that. It's not you, it's me thing, right? But I think it was me because what he said, and I told him this, I said I was probably just having a bad day. And then I took that bad day and I walked that bad day into that thing and I was just like, whoa, you caught me off guard. And I took that a little too hard. Now the other one happened last Wednesday night. We were here and we were Christians together. And I got this haircut that I didn't really like. And I sat down in the chair and I said to the guy, and this is no joke, as I joked with him, I'm like, yeah, I want to look like David Beckham, see what you can do here. And he gave me this. So I'm sitting in the back of church and I've got this good friend, mentor, brother, and he says to me, did you pay for that? Wow. Now, because it was late at night, I had heard that similar comments all day, and I didn't care because I was really going to just shave it off. I said to Sarah, I'm going to just go home and shave this off anyway, so it doesn't matter. I don't care. It's just hair. Both of those things were said to me. One of them I took offense to, the other I didn't. They were both potentially offensive, and yet they were both joking because I have relationships with both of these people. It wasn't them, it was me. It was Gordy, our elder, by the way. I'm going to just tell you that so you're not looking around. And we talked about this morning. I said, I'm going to bring this up because this is a great example of how I didn't get offended, how I grew from the last time, right? So if these are things that cross your path, these are fairly easy to work through. Are you ready? All right, this is going to happen to you tomorrow morning because we're talking about it today. It's actually a heart check. It's a heart check. You see, both times, there was a potential that it was a pride thing with me, that my pride was hurt. And as believers, what are we supposed to do with pride? We're supposed to work through that, aren't we? We are. So the first thing you need to do is that you need to look inside, because if these minor things bother you, it might be you. You might just be on edge. You might need to eat. I don't know what your problem is. But you have to look inside and say, what causes me to blow up so fast? And why do I run into victim mode? Because that's what you do, right? You run into this mode, it's like a victim mode. Oh man, they're all over me. That Decker, he's all over me. At least my hair's still one color. I didn't say that, and it's not. It's really not, so I can say that. He knows I have different colors in here. But when you run to that victim mode, then you start to pile things up, and then you start to grab things. So the next thing you need to do is you realize that it may be you. You have to look inside, and then you need to fill up with God's love. Really. Because life's little annoyances, there are people in your lives that will annoy you for the rest of your life. They may be sitting next to you. They may be on the stage. I don't know. But we need to remember that we need to forget things, deal with them, and then move on graciously. That's what believers are called to do. The third thing in this type of this small, minor hurt offense is that you need to seek God. You need to ask God. God, I need help to grow so that I don't just, boom, blow up. I don't get offended. These are still offenses. They're not okay. I'm not saying that these are okay to do, but they're not a category 2. Category 2 is legitimate hurts and wounds. These, even if you're having a bad day, these should have never happened, okay? So the next category is legitimate wounds and hurts. These would be disappointments. These can be abuses. These can be office slights. They can be physical fights. That you can be somewhere where you betrayed a confidence. Your confidence was betrayed. You were lied to. Someone stole something from you. Someone close to you broke a promise. So these are bigger type of things. Now, if you go back to the Old Testament, if something like this happened, what would you do? Eye for an eye. This is the eye for an eye mentality, right? All the guys are like, yeah, give me the eye for the eye. Let's get this over with. I could have taken him 20 years ago. I probably have one good one left in me. But that's not what Colossians 3 says. Colossians 3 doesn't say that because it's the new covenant. And under the new covenant, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to clothe ourselves with humility, and part of that humility includes forgiveness. So what do you do when something happens? So where there is this thing that requires resolution? Because in a category 2, there is going to be a rift where you're not going to rub shoulders. Clearly, Gordy did not give me a category 2 on Wednesday night because we're laughing and joking this morning. Nothing. But in a category 2, that's you do that avoidance. You don't want to deal with people. The relationship that you had a week before that is not the same as the week after, okay? You don't have that. But the action is on our part. If you are the one that is wounded, you are the one that is hurt, it is on our part to talk to that person. As uncomfortable and ugly as that may be, according to Matthew chapter 18, you are to go to that person. So the key word in resolving, moving on in category 2 is just that. It's go. This is the go formula. Number 1, you're going to go. You need to take the first step. You need to quit stewing about yourself. You need to take that step and not let it get any bigger, because the longer you think about it, the better it's going to get in your head. You're going to have a major motion picture on what they did to you, and they may have not done that much. But the longer you think about it, the longer you give energy to it, the longer you stew on this, the worse it's going to get. And then the harder it is to take that first step, because by the time you're done, you are the victim, and you are the victim that is right, and they are wrong, and in your mind, they're probably going to hell, and you don't even need to go to them. It's true. We think like that. But you need to take the first step. And the other thing you need to do is you need to go alone. You don't need to tell 20 people in this room that you're going. You don't need to tell 20 people on Facebook. You don't need to tell 20 people in a group text. You need to go alone. The next thing is you need to go to reconcile the relationship. You don't go, if you read Matthew, you're going to read Matthew 18 when you get home later, you don't go to feel better. You go better to fix this relationship, because that's what we're called to do as believers. So you go with the idea to reconcile the relationship. This may sound like, you know what, Jason, we've had a good friendship. You said something that kind of bothered me a little bit. It's not walking up to Jason like, dude, what's your problem? What's your problem, really? No, it's lay a foundation, talk about it, and go with humility. You may have heard it wrong. Have you ever done that where somebody says something to you, and you're like, man, they are a jerk. And they didn't even say that. But in your mind, that's what you heard, and you go talk to them, and they're like, I didn't even say that. That wasn't what I meant. That wasn't my heart. All right, so you need to go to reconcile, and then you need to go now. Don't wait, because I already talked about what waiting does. Waiting creates more problems. Waiting increases bitterness. It increases the load. Go no. Nice. I had something else there that was I put on, but go now. And then the last one is let it go. Let it go. I had a Frozen clip in here, but I guess YouTube didn't like that and Facebook, so I would sing Frozen for you, but I don't do that. But no. I don't know if that's forgivable. But sometimes we need to let things go. Once you do these things, you may need to let it go. Sometimes you can do everything right, but the other person might not reconcile with you. But if you've done these steps, if you've followed what's laid out in Scripture, then it's time for you to let it go. Remember, if we look at a biblical example of this, if you read in John, Jesus appears to his disciples and they're fishing, and he comes up and I believe it's John who says to Peter, he's like, that's Jesus. And what does Peter do? He jumps out of the boat, I think. If you read the story, he jumps out of the boat to go see Jesus. And remember, he offended Jesus in all sense of the word when he denied him as Jesus was being beaten and crucified. But what did he do? He jumped out of the boat, he did the go formula, and then they talk about it. And the end of that, Jesus is like, okay, feed my sheep, feed my sheep, feed my sheep. This thing is jumping right off my ear today, sorry. So the key for the second category is to go. Don't wait. Just go. Is it going to be uncomfortable? It might be. Is that okay? Can we be honest for 1 second? Life is kind of uncomfortable. And when you do things that actually mean something, a lot of times there's more discomfort in them than sitting on your sitting on your couch watching TV with the dog trying to circle on you. That's pretty easy. But if something comes up, you need to take care of it. A few years ago, I got an email from a friend, and the friend had thought that she had done something terrible to me. And she had waited a while before she sent it out, partially because she didn't know me well enough. And then she sent this out and basically asked for forgiveness. And I really didn't think that she had wronged me. I didn't hold anything against her. But the point was, that was her steps in going. So there are different ways to go, but you need to be going. Now, the last category, these are life-shattering injustices. These are things that I hope never happen to you. Chances are some of you in this room have been through a Category 3. Now remember, when we look at categories, they're just like tornadoes. The higher the number, the more damage that happens. These are brutal, and these are life changers. These are brutal life changers. If just looking at the F3 category on the tornado scale, the winds are anywhere from 158 to 205 miles an hour. The one that went through Port Huron, Sarnia in 53 was they classified as an F4. But there's severe damage. Roofs and walls are torn down. Trains are overturned in F3, and cars are just thrown around. I think there's in that one of those clips that is about the Port Huron tornado. This lady ran into her car for safety, and the car was thrown like 250 feet, and she ended up surviving, which was a total miracle, but it's just so brutal. But in this category, relationships can be severely damaged, boundaries are torn down, and normalcy in your life may never return to the same point. Emotions and feelings are thrown around without rest. So this is one of those things that is so bad that it is just it's a travesty that you have to go through it. No human should have to go through this type of thing. So these are very, very difficult things. Examples would be someone hurts someone that you love very deeply. Someone hurts you very deeply. There can be physical harm. There can be just terrible emotional abuse. These are the things that when you look at people, your heart goes out to people who are going through these things. You know what I'm talking about. But these things, initially, if you're the one that is being wounded or hurt, you have this anger and you see red. The glasses that you have on, they are like revenge goggles. You are in your mind, you're like, how do I get back at this person? I don't know. That's all I can think of is how to hurt this person. So you have that anger, you have that revenge, and then you have this bitterness that really just holds you together. It's all you can think about is how bitter you are. And then you know what happens with that is it breeds hatred. And when you have hatred, then you want something bad to happen to this person. These are not easy to recover from. So there's definitely a big gap between the green and the red there, okay? I don't want to make light of this at all. But steps in recovery look something like this. If these things happen to you, you need to move from what was actually did to what it did to you, to how it affected you. So you need to face it. You need to name what happened. So I'm going to use a spouse cheating. So it would be the spouse cheated on me. My husband cheated on me. And then the next thing you need to do is you need to identify what was lost. Identify what you've lost. So you need to name that. So for the wife whose husband cheated, it would be, I lost the purity of marriage. I lost that sacred covenant. Our covenant is broken. The trust is gone. So those are things that I've lost. Another example of that in the text that I was reading was, drunk driver kills his son. What happened? I lost my son, lost my daughter, right? And then what happens there is, I won't see my son graduate from college. I won't see my son get a job and have a family. So those are things that are lost. And those are the things that we need to think about, because those things will move you from a point of hatred to sadness. Sadness is okay. But you have to move from hatred to sadness in order to understand how to forgive. So the next step is, and that'd be number 3, you need to be open to forgive. Now, I'd love to tell you that this happens in 2 weeks. I'd love to tell you that it happens in 2 years. I'd love to tell you that this happens in 20 years. I don't know when these things happen. This is a long process. It's a very long process. Adam Hamilton describes this as a two-dimensional process. He has a blog if you want to follow. It's Adam Hamilton, not Alexander Hamilton, which I kept thinking I was going to say. But he says the first thing you need to do is that release of your internal release of bitterness, anger, and the desire for revenge. He said the more serious the wound is, the longer it may take. Failure to forgive in this sense gives power to the person who wronged you. It is not them who is hurt and limited by your unwillingness to unforgive, but you. And then the second part that he says as you walk through this is to extend mercy. And that's the last thing that is on your mind when you are in this state, is extending mercy. It's amazing how many articles, how many people have gone through terrible traumatic events. And then when they're in the courthouse, the judge asks their opinion and the judge will step up. And 9 times out of 10, these are believers. And they say, show them mercy, because that's what Jesus would do. It's amazing to me. I don't know if I could do that, to be honest with you, but that's what they do. So this extending mercy, that is the goal. And that, like I said, that may take years and years, because the goal of the extension of mercy is redemption of that person. If we look at Colossians chapter 3, if we're supposed to be clothed in those things and look like Jesus, then that's where we need to go. And those are steps that we need to take. We need to ultimately show the mercy that we have at the cross. Now, I can't say it enough that this is time. This is not something that you can be pushed through. This is not something that somebody's going to say, you know what, you should be in this step. Pastor Jim said you should be in step 2 right now. They say that. I didn't say that. I don't know how this will play out for you, but this is one of those things we need to look at. So we have minor. Minor things are where we check our heart. So that's your action thing. Tomorrow morning when somebody offends you, if you're by Gordy, look out. He's wild. Minor things. Love you, brother. Minor, we look inside. When we get legitimate hurts and wounds, that's when we're going to go. We're going to take that step. We're going to start conversation. We're going to open up dialogue. Human nature is to take a step back, right? I'm just going to unfriend you. That solves it, because that solves everything. Get rid of you. They don't exist. But that's what we're going to do, is we're going to use the GO formula. And then the life-shattering injustices, those are instances where you just need to breathe. You need to breathe to survive, and then get your bearings, and then start working through those things. Stand with me, church. The reason we put these in categories is so tomorrow when something happens, is that a category 1? Is that a category 2? Is that a category 3? You'll know a 3 because it will knock your world off. So it's probably not going to be a 3. But a 1 and a 2, you need to deal with that. And if it's a 1, automatically look inside, because that will save you so much stress. I wish somebody would have told me this 20 years ago. I want to remind you that wounded to whole takes intentionality. It doesn't happen passively. You need to take steps. If these last few weeks have challenged your faith, if they've challenged your idea of forgiveness or unforgiveness or stuff that you've been holding on to, I want to give you an opportunity to start that path. I'm not saying that you have to start your forgiveness and end it in the next 30 seconds, but I want you to at least look inside and say, you know what, Jesus, I do forgive. I want you to help my unforgiveness. Remember when Jesus, they said to Jesus, help my unbelief. Part of us is not believing that we can forgive. So that step in your mind, in your heart, in your prayer is, Jesus, help my unforgiveness. Father, I forgive them. I release my right for revenge, for hatred, my desire to control them. Please forgive me. Let me pray for your church. God, we come before you in the precious name of Jesus. It's because of that name that we can come and actually pray. That we have been rescued from the kingdom of darkness and brought into the kingdom of light. And in that kingdom of light, we are called to forgive, to love other people beyond ourselves. So God, I pray right now for just a supernatural grace in our hearts and mercy in our hearts. God, for things that we have been holding on to, I pray that we can walk through these steps, these different categories, to show mercy, to show grace, but ultimately to show the love of Christ to the world, God. God, I thank you for this people. I thank you for your word, the direction that we get every time we look into it. I bless them in Jesus' name. Amen. Be blessed, church.